Welcome to your daily dose of dopamine, featuring Billy's coughs. Um, Billy is a fellow Dollar Baby filmmaker. My name is Robert, and we met at King Con, the Stephen King convention in Las Vegas, late October. We were talking off screen and wanted to bring it here for our final thing. As you know, with a couple other Dollar Baby filmmakers, there was kind of the surprising or background thing. We have some similar and interested backgrounds as to why we got into it. And the first one is right behind you. There's the Limey, the Steven Soderbergh film.
Man,
Yeah, perfect. Tell me, that's one of my favorites. Clearly, one of your favorites. Tell me
yeah.
about your background with the Limey and why that's one of your favorites.
I saw it in college, and I think I had just started to realize who Soderbergh was, and
Mm.
I realized that I hadn't seen this Soderbergh yet. And so I watched it, and I was just glued to it, and I was just completely confounded by it. And I found myself asking, like, why did they do it this way? So I watched it over and over, and it's also just one of the coolest movies I've ever seen, and
Yeah.
it was a lot to it. And the more that I read into it, and how these really cool icons from the 60s basically facing off from each other. I was like, oh, that's even cooler. I just it was one of the first movies that I was completely enamored with.
Yeah. So you got Stamp and Fonda doing their thing, and
Yeah.
clearly Soderbergh's a junkie for the world of cinema, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, he had some commercial success, but he has this interesting career where I think every once in a while he just kind of goes, "I need to get out with a couple people and do it my way." And
Yeah.
and what is the one I'm trying to think? Is it Full Frontal where he didn't allow any of the stars to come through with any makeup or anything? He shot it
I
on
think so.
FL1. Is that the right one?
I believe so. Yeah. There was that one, and there was another movie that he did called Bubble around the same time that was really stripped down. I don't
Yeah.
even think there were like real actors in it. I think it was just kind of regular people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that he goes from like Ocean's 11
Right.
to Bubble, like these tiny little movies.
Yeah. I heard somebody describe him once as the Michael Jordan of filmmaking, that he can do it
Mm,
all. Does that sound apt to you?
100%, because I think he shoots his own stuff, he cuts his own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so he's kind of a one-man show.
So you're going in, you see a film like this, it blows your mind. It did the same for me, was clearly influential for you as well. Did it help you at that moment say, this is what I want to do, or were you already bought in as a filmmaker?
At that point, I was already on my way to being a filmmaker. I was in film school when I saw it for the first time, so it was in my sort of early like properly learning about cinema time.
Yeah.
Before that, I was very much like Hollywood movies were kind of the only thing I had access to or knew about.
Yeah.
And then Amelie came through, and I was like, oh, other countries make movies too. They're really cool. And from there, it was like I just broadened my horizons a little bit from there.
I fully admit that same track. Grew up being a very commercial Hollywood fan, and it wasn't until I went to UCLA for screenwriting mid '90s that I had a roommate, and she said, "Okay, it's time to educate you a little about cinema."
Yeah.
Because I still have no problem about saying, and I've told you about some of my influences being, I mean, Spike Lee, Mel Brooks, Woody Allen,
Yeah.
somewhere in those places. Um, but yeah, when you'll see a Kurosawa film, you'll be like, "Oh my God!" Right?
Oh, this is something different. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this movie right here, The
Wages of
Wages
Fear.
of Fear,
Yep.
my all-time favorite. Like I remember, so I watched that in film school, and one of our professors just screened it for us, and I was glued to it like I've never been glued to a movie before.
What
And
did you do? What was the experience? Take me there.
so it was a theater. We were in a small theater, and I was immediately just enamored with the characters, and the characters are so rich and detailed and deep right from the beginning, and the sense of injustice of these people that are just trapped in this town. Um, and for anyone that hasn't seen it, the basic premise is that these four guys from a very small, poor town in Central America are hired to drive two trucks filled with nitroglycerin across really rough terrain. And nitroglycerin, if you're transporting, is very dangerous. So they get a wrong bump or rumble, anything, it explodes and they die. So it's just incredibly tense, and the action sequences or suspenseful sequences, I was like sweating and gripping my seat because I was in so much suspense. And there's some imagery in it that is straight out of a horror movie, like the oil pit scene. I will never forget it. And so, yeah, I was struck by the enormity of it, especially from a movie from 1954. I was just blown away, and I've never, like, never, nothing has ever topped it for me, suspense wise.
Are you familiar with the term cinema therapy?
Not really.
So it's this area of this is where, kind of in a roundabout way, I've turned my career, right? I mean, I still produce stuff as I can, but yeah, with kids and everything, it's harder to get out. Um, Cinema therapy is this idea that the movies we watch and that we keep watching that we're fans of, they're not just saying something to us, but we, in fact, have something to say to them. And that there are certain therapists, it's a smaller kind of a niche type of field. However, but there are therapists who will use films in like cognitive behavioral to say, your story sounds like, and have people watch a film, helps them externalize, and then
Yeah.
therefore tell their story via that. That's a large part of like what my program now is about. What do you feel about that relationship? Because I heard you describe it just there. What does Wages of Fear say about you? Because you mentioned the injustice, you mentioned
Yeah.
the tension. What does it say about you that you're attracted so deeply to it?
A lot. Every writer I think goes through a journey of finding out who they are and what they like to write about. It's the deepest wound is what everyone calls it. But and it took me a long time to do that. But when I watch The Wages of Fear, I see sort of all of the things that I usually write about. They is an examination of masculinity. There's the suspicion of authority or corruption of authority. Um, People going to extreme measures to achieve goals, like all of that is wrapped up in this movie. There's a fascinating story with the characters where there's a real tough guy comes into town and he's bullying everyone. He's got a pistol and he's like threatening to kill everybody, and he gets to be one of these people that goes on the trip. But as he's in danger, you watch him crumble into nothing. And I just find that fascinating. And a lot of what I write about is fragile masculinity or like the toxic masculinity. And a lot of my characters fall into that category, um, as well as the corruption of authority. Like that works its way into my work quite a bit.
That's
So
outstanding.
yeah, it's a movie that means a lot to me.
It sounds like it fits very much, what I know of cinema therapy. I'm glad that latched on so well to you, and you find yourself in it. That the experience can be, again, to put a button on this for those at home. You're watching the movie and you say to yourself, "That's me,"
Yeah,
or you feel somewhere a deep calling to go, "Oh my God, someone!" It's like the movie's looking at me, and oh my God, they're showing that thing that I thought no one else knew or felt.
yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I can watch that movie and say, I can see myself telling this story. I watched something like The Substance and I love it. It thought it was awesome and crazy. I don't think I could make that movie. So that's a very
Yeah,
different experience. But to watch something like that that's so deeply personal, in ways that you may not even know,
that's right.
yeah,
That's why you
it's
keep
important.
examining it. That's why
Exactly.
you keep going back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, this is so good. We're going to do more of this another time, but I'm going to put a button on this for now. Billy, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And I look forward to talking to you again about whatever we're going to talk about.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.